They've been fighting alone all their lives until they found something bigger and more important than themselves. I'm talking about two men, Mr. A, the sage in my book, The Next Level Entrepreneur, and Joe Rantz in the new movie, The Boys in the Boat. Watch or just listen to the last 40 seconds of The Boys in the Boat official trailer, and we'll unpack it on the other side.
Maybe we can roll as a team.
If you guys don't get yourselves figured out, you're not racing at all.
The boys, that boat, Saga.
But they didn't understand who we were.
Let's show what's in this book.
I don't believe what I'm seeing.
Best fellas, they're connected. Sweat and pain.
For what it's worth, I'm proud of you boys.
Inspiring.
You missed the part where I told him not to tip over.
And I
Roll for your country. Roll for each other.
for all the people who never believed in you. As one. As one.
And it's perfect that this trailer came out right when it did, because just a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how if you want your company to succeed, you need everybody to be moving in the same direction. And we used a rowboat analogy as the example for it.
Welcome to the Get Business Savvy podcast. I'm George Black, and this is AJ Bishop.
So once you sent me this trailer, I was like, wow, that's such perfect timing. And it's almost like the universe is telling us to keep rowing in the same direction.
I agree, AJ. You know, for years, I've had this image. If you saw the clip or if you're just listening, it's the classic 8 men in the long, slender boat with the man with the megaphone, you know, telling them when to pull. And they've got the 20-foot long oars on either side. So it's a narrow boat, but a really wide scene. And they're moving super fast down the river. If you've ever seen it, it's just spectacular to watch. I've always had that image of they all have to pull together as what the Next Level Navigator does and setting direction. We've got to go dig into this because there's so many great parallels. As we begin the new year, we're setting direction, growing our companies, taking them to next levels, all that sort of thing. This is going to be jam-packed with great ideas for you.
And especially as we're building our companies and setting direction for the new year, it's important that we keep everybody in the boat connected and moving in that same direction, going at the same time. And as an entrepreneur, it's important. I'm imagining in this analogy, we're going to be using the entrepreneur a lot of times is that person at the back of the boat with the megaphone yelling. But as we'll talk about, sometimes you're the solopreneur and you're going to have to be able to direct yourself while rowing at the same exact time as well.
Right. Let's unpack some of the dialogue, because I realize if you're just listening to it and you're not watching it, it's a little harder to hear some of that dialogue. And there's some key points of interest, I think. First of all, they talk about, there's this one scene, there's a lot of visual going on, and then you hear it's sweat and pain. And that, look, if you're in the entrepreneurial journey, you should know it's sweat and pain.
Almost all the time.
Right. It may be metaphorical sweat, but it's still, sweat and pain in that sense.
Yeah, and right before they said that, they were saying that the best boats are connected, which points to the power of the team. Even though you're going through the sweat and pain, if you want any success at the end of that sweat and pain, your team better be connected.
Right. And let me tell you something. If that's true for companies, whether your business is just yourself or many people or thousands of people, if they're not connected, they're not going to be the best. And the best companies, the best boats, there's a connection there.
It's amazing how much is packed into this 40 seconds that we can unpack here, because you hear the announcer saying, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And at the end of the clip, the coach is yelling at the team for all those people who never believed in you. And that's very much what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Is you just have this idea, and from the onset, everyone you meet is going to tell you reasons they don't think it's going to succeed. You can talk to investors and they'll give you a million reasons why they won't give you money because you're not going to succeed. It's just this constant uphill battle of fighting through all the no's and all the people who don't believe that your idea is good or that you're the one or you're the right person to enact that idea, but you just got to keep on rowing and you got to keep on believing in that same direction.
Yeah. This is huge. This is huge because you have to fight through the doubters, the haters. You've got to fight through that because it will make you better. These guys in the boat, the boys in the boat, that rallies them. Nobody believes they can do it. And they do. And I think it leads to, well, then who are you doing this for? Because and the coach says at the end, row for your country, row for each other, row for those who never believed in you. You've got to be clear who you're doing this for.
And that's a very common message. I know, at least from my background playing team sports, we always had coaches who would tell us, I don't care what you're in this for, but at least be in it for the people next to you. Because you guys are all going through the same struggle and you're all together and we're one team at the end of the day. And without the people next to you, none of us are going to succeed. So at least just do it for them if you don't have anything else while you're here. And that always stuck with me, that coaches would say that at the bare minimum, do it for the teammates that you agree to do this, whatever this endeavor is with.
Yeah. An interesting side note is, so I watched some of the interviews with some of the key actors and stuff. So the actors actually did the rowing and they didn't want to use doubles or stand-ins or anything like that. And so they had to train for 4 weeks. And this is rigorous stuff because these boats were racing at 44 strokes a minute.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, 44 strokes. I mean, this is world record pace back in the 20s, okay? And the actors would actually average like 34, 36 strokes a minute. It had the galvanizing effect of a team, and you could hear it as they're talking about it.
Those scenes look so realistic as they're pulling back because those actors aren't acting. They're actually moving a boat in water as fast as they can.
It is absolutely fascinating, and it's very real, and it's very, very rigorous. All this parallels what I've always seen with this kind of rowing with a team and pulling in a company in the same direction. And like I said a couple weeks ago, companies that don't have clear direction, they might succeed, okay? And a lot do, quite frankly. But those that pull in the same direction, those are the ones you talk about. Those are the big success stories. And I don't care if you've got 3 employees or 3,000 employees. If you've got them pulling in the same direction, it's absolutely phenomenal. And we did that at Rackspace. We started at with the Next Level Navigator at 800 employees. We had over 2,000. It was a global company. We had a big presence in the UK and Europe, and we had the company pulling in the same direction, and they became the number 1 in managed hosting in 4 years.
Wow.
So this is absolutely in my, we'll use wheelhouse of interest, this movie, Mr. A's story.
And I can see how getting everybody to pull in the same direction at the same time and believing in that direction, I can see how that can cause positive results for a business. But you just touched on something there. I don't know if everybody in our audience can relate. You were saying, whether you have 3 employees or 3,000 employees, and it worked for Rackspace, taking them from 800 employees to 2,000 employees. But we have a lot of people listening here. I know you said you're in this boat as well, who it's just them. That's just them in the boat who have to row in the same direction and cast the direction and call out the strokes and all of that. So how do you have a connected boat when it's just one person?
Right. Because you're already a one, right? So as one, well, I'm the only one in the boat, right?
Who do you connect to?
That's a good question. Have you ever been in a row boat? I'm not talking one of the long, slender ones. I'm just talking a regular old rowboat with, 2 oars, one out each side.
Does a canoe count?
No, a canoe does not count because you only have one paddle. All right.
Oh. Well, I've been in only a canoe once, so that would be what I got.
Well, let me tell you. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see my hands. All right. And so you have to do the same rowing, or if you've done a rowing machine in the gym, it's similar. But you've got to move your hands in the same synchronous way. When you first start out, you're not. And if you've got one hand ahead of the other, that's actually how you turn the boat. And if you keep doing that, you'll just go in circles, which actually works really well for this analogy. Because if you want to move forward, you've got to train yourself as one. Try to move your hands. See, if you're right hand dominant or left hand dominant, one's going to pull harder than the other one. As one, just get your two hands working together, so to speak. If you don't know where you're headed, then you're just going to go in circles.
You're also going to get very dizzy and probably want to get out of the boat very quickly.
Right. No solopreneur totally is solo. So in other words, you may have, first of all, you got customers or clients or something, and you're interacting with them. And I realize they may not operate as one with you, but you need to be operating as one with them. There's other places beyond just the team to operate as one. If you're outsourcing some things, getting some help, and look, if you are moving toward a next level, you will start getting new people involved, whether it's a contractor, employee, or whatever. And when you start to do that, if you're not moving as one in that direction, they won't either. But if you are, they will.
And then this is something we talk about all the time is, even as a solopreneur, you need to find a community of people that can help you as you need it, because you're not going to be 100% proficient at everything. You're going to need help. And like you said,
right.
If you have any degree of success in business, it requires other people be involved. So as you involve those other people, it's your job as the solopreneur to bring them into the boat and make sure they stay connected with your direction and your mission, and you row along with them, just as you were saying there.
Which makes me realize so 2 weeks ago, at the beginning of the year, we talked about where are you headed. And then last week we talked about what's your theme for the year. If you're in a community of people and you want them to understand what you're doing, you better be able to answer those two questions. Because if you can, you're going to get them, they're going to get in the boat with you, or you're going to see these aren't the right people to be in my boat.
Mm-hmm.
One of the interesting things is they interview, or I don't know if interview is the right word, but they have tryouts. Okay. And they're only going to pick 8 guys. And the setup for this is the Depression. So they're coming right out of the Depression. It's the early 30s. It's at the University of Washington. And this is a true story. Joe Rantz is a true person. He became one of the top rowers in America, or maybe the world. And it's in the trailer, so I'm not scene spoiling. They go to the 1936 Olympics, and they beat these are nobodies. Okay. The University of Washington is kind of a blue collar school, and they go to the East Coast and they beat the big rich guys and the big rich universities and the frat boys and all this stuff. So you've got to get the right guys in the boat. And that's actually a principle from Jim Collins' Good to Great. How do you get the right people in the boat? Well, we'll save that for another time, but that's really, really key to the success.
Yeah. And as I saw this and was looking into the story even more, it was kind of crazy to me to see that Joe Rantz and Mr. A's story from your book, they parallel each other very, very significantly, in my opinion. They both were kind of loners. They both are fighters, and yeah, they're both loners and fighters their entire life, and then they stumble into this great mission.
Right. So, guys, what we're talking about is my book, The Next Level Entrepreneur. In it, I unpack what is this strategic process I used at Rackspace and other companies called the Next Level Navigator. And so it's letters between Mr. A and a young entrepreneur wannabe, Max North. And so it's letters. It's set in the 40s, right before and after and during World War II. So toward the end, Mr. A writes a long letter to Max. It's called The Next Level Navigator Story. And this is really the first pull the curtain back on Mr. A, and you get to learn about this man. And he is like Joe Rantz. So Joe Rantz he's coming out of the Depression. He's a wounded man. His dad abandoned him when he was 14, I think, and his mom, I think, died when he was 3. He's had to make it on his own. He enters the story, or the movie picks him up at age 19 at the University of Washington. Now, in the Depression, or post depression, 30% unemployment. I mean, just eating was important. So he gets a job. He realizes he could get a job as on rowing this boat would be a way to get an education, and education then was a huge step up economically. So socioeconomically, it's a big lift. He'd have a bed to sleep in. He was homeless. That was the other thing. He's sleeping in his car, and he'd have food. So this was like the dream answer. Okay. He had no idea what he was getting into.
So he got into this completely out of desperation. He wasn't in it like a lot of entrepreneurs. I know some of us will stumble into entrepreneurism out of desperation, but I feel like, right. And maybe it could still be desperation just in a different way, but a lot of us are just driven by the idea that we have and wanting to bring that into the world. And we're just so desperate to bring that into the world.
I think you're exactly right. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs have told me, if I had really thought this through and really researched it, I think you've even said this, AJ, I wouldn't have done it. Oh, well, yeah. You said it about the podcast. That's what you said.
I did. If I knew how much,
me too. I mean, we just kind of, and so we're like Joe, and Mr. A was the same way. And so in the book, my book, he gets to this place of desperation. He's working 60, 80 hours a week. He's can't keep one employee. They hire 3 and lose 4 and that sort of thing. And everything's flattened. It's plateaued. It's hit a ceiling. We call it success barriers. And he is ready to quit.
And and I feel like you said with the podcast, and we talked about this last week, even when we got to the point in the podcast where we said it just wasn't fun anymore.
Right.
And you hit that roadblock, and you can either quit or you can face the reality and make changes to better adjust that so that, like in the case of the podcast, it is fun to record again. And in the case of Mr. A, you want to keep doing your business. In the case of Joe Rantz, to keep rowing the boat.
Well, so what happens is there's a scene in the movie. I think you get a little bit of this in the trailer. So there's a big race in Poughkeepsie, New York. And Poughkeepsie's on the Hudson River. And it's across the river from West Point, the military academy. And so this is prestigious. The Hudson River is some of the richest real estate in the world. And so these are some of the rich guys they're up against. And he just is in a state. His head is in a state, and he gets kicked out of the boat.
So what happens?
Joe faces what every entrepreneur, including you and me on this podcast, have faced. He can either deal with this like he's dealt with everything the rest of his life, which is kind of withdraw and go be the loner and just go fight somewhere else, or he can learn how to be on a team. He can be the kind of man people will look up to. He could step up and start leading the team. Mr. A is in exactly the same spot when he gets this revelation, and you'll have to read the book to get the whole thing, but he gets this revelation, and it's the Next Level Navigator, and he goes back to his company that he was ready to just shut down. He had left and was ready to shut down. He goes, I'm exhausted. I just can't keep doing this.
And as an entrepreneur, when you get to that point, that's kind of the inflection point where you realize something has to change, where you reach these obstacles and you realize something has to change if I'm going to break through these. And I mean, the easy choice is always don't change anything. And like you said, withdraw, go fight somewhere else, and retreat. Or you can take accountability and take responsibility as the entrepreneur and make the changes to get yourself to the next level and get yourself past those barriers.
Yeah, AJ, there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. And I'll reveal this from the book. So Mr. A discovers, so I mentioned something about success barriers. They'd plateaued and all of that. He figures out the reason why. It's him. And Joe Rantz has the same breakthrough. And when you said it's not fun, we looked at ourselves and go, it's not fun because of us. It's not because of it's because of it's something inside us. So I want to read just a paragraph from the conclusion of this letter, because I want you to hear the elation Mr. A has upon returning to the company to pursue the company's next level. Here's what he writes. Upon my return to the company, I immediately assembled the new leadership team. I took them through all my notes and the methodology that had emerged during my time away. I was stunned by their contributions and enthusiasm. It was like strapping jet engines on a prop plane. I could not keep pace, and it has been that way ever since. They improved all my ideas, took ownership of their areas, and we began to move forward to our next level. Max, this did not mean it was all smooth sailing. So there's a boat analogy right there. This is he was not operating with a team. The reason he says new leadership team is because there hadn't been a team. There hadn't been a leadership team. It had just been him trying to get around all the elements of the company and run it all himself.
And he realized that needs to change. This is unsustainable. I need to bring other people in this boat, and I need to just be open and honest with them so that we can all connect. Like, based on my notes, we'll connect on my notes, and they'll help me take them even further so that we can get to the ultimate direction I'm trying to go. Because as an entrepreneur, I'm not going to be able to do it myself.
So Joe the pattern is exactly the same, and it's always the same. Mr. A wants to quit. Joe just fine. I got kicked out of the boat. I'm gone. And we fall into the old wounds and reactions and things like that. Remember, nobody believes in us, right? You got all that working against you, or you can face and move in exactly the opposite direction you've always gone in the past and go, no, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to shut the company down. I'm going to get back in the boat.
And I'll bring the right people with me and inspire, and we're going to connect in a different way this time based on whatever the change necessary needed to be made. And then we're going to achieve that direction. It's still, no one else believes, but I still believe, even though I'm in front of this obstacle.
And guys, listen, this is the secret to the next level navigator. It's that you have to break through to a next level. And what I learned is that you can know what the next level is, but you can't see how you're going to get there. It sounds like that's sort of an oxymoron type of thing, and it is, but it's absolutely true. And it requires a complete change and rearranging of how you do business. And that's why it's so radical, and that's why it works. So I want you to do a Next Level Navigator. I've got a super special, really deeply discounted offer on the website, link down below, where I have the Next Level Navigator eCourse for the month of January at a great price. Hop on, do that. It's a bunch of videos, but it will transform. Get the book. The whole process is in the book too. Do this whether you're a solopreneur or you have a small team or a large team. It does not matter. This is going to be transformative for you. So for more on next levels, direction, themes, check out these two videos from the last 2 weeks. I know you're going to love them. And in the meantime, may you live truly free.